All right, we're live, gentlemen. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're thrilled to have you with us today for our exclusive webinar with Hostfully and our special guests. Today we have Eric and Jasper with Freewyld Foundry. Gentlemen, just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for joining us today. We're excited to really learn how the people on today's call can unlock the hidden revenue and just make smarter pricing decisions moving forward, but also an opportunity to learn about this new venture with Freewyld Foundry. So thank you for joining today. To the attendees, thank you for joining as well. We're gonna be getting started in a few minutes, just waiting on a few more folks to kind of trickle in. But while we do wait, and to really kind of also help us tailor today's demo for you, you're gonna notice a questions tab at the bottom right of your screen. Please feel free to drop any questions here throughout the next hour. Our team will be answering them behind the scenes as we go. But again, take the opportunity to ask Eric or Jasper any questions that you have on your mind, because these guys are a wealth of information and they know what they're talking about. Also, you're going to see a few quick polls pop up during the webinar. We would also love for you to participate in those. So it's a great way for us to get a better understanding of who's attending today's call and make the session a little bit more relevant to your specific needs. In the meantime, however, since we're just waiting for a few more people, I just wanted to take a moment and post a poll for you to answer. So I'm curious on how many properties everyone has. So just click how many listings do you currently manage or own, could go either way. So answer those so we can get an understanding of who's on today's call. And let me see the results. So about 50% of you have 0 to 4. Oh, it's toggling. All right, we have 50% at 0 to 4. 33% of you are at 5 to 15. And then we have 17% at 30 plus. So good job, guys. So that's kind of how the polls are going to work and what to expect from there. But I do see more people coming in, so I guess we can kick things off. So to everyone joining today, for those of you that did just join, thank you so much for carving out the time of your day to be here. I'm Frank Bosi. I'm the Senior Director of Partner Development here at Hostfully. And today we're joined by my colleague Ignacio, who's on the back end helping me out answering any of your questions and to keep things running smoothly. Mitch Foster was supposed to be here, but he had a last-minute plumbing issue with his short-term rental. We can all relate. So he wasn't able to join in today's call. So Frank's running the show today along with Jasper and Eric. Of course, I am excited to introduce our special guest today. We have Eric, who's the co-founder and CEO, as well as Jasper, who's the head of revenue management. Both of these guys are extremely well-versed in short-term rentals overall, being property managers themselves, but also they're focused heavily on pricing management, but also pacing to help you make more money in the long end. So Eric, Jasper, we're so excited to learn from you both today and everything y'all have done to master and excel in this ever-growing industry. Before I jump into my quick spiel about Hostfully, just some housekeeping rules for those of you that did just join. A questions tab is at the bottom right of the corner. Feel free to drop questions there anytime during today's webinar. We'll do our best to get those answered for you throughout the webinar. And then at the end, we will have a question and answer portion, time permitting, of course. You're going to also notice a few pop-up polls come up, which we just experienced. These help us better understand who's joining and what to focus on. So we'd really appreciate your participation there. And then finally, don't be shy. We use a webinar platform that has emoji reaction. So here at Hostfully, we like to keep things fun, engaging. So if you have some fun, let us know. Use those emojis. Let us know that you're still with us. And before just jumping into today's webinar, wanted to let you know a little bit more about Hostfully, especially for those of you that are new to Hostfully or have never heard of Hostfully. We're an all-in-one vacation rental property management platform. So we essentially help you run your business from tip to tail, from start to finish. Our mission is simple. We help property management companies and vacation rental companies boost their revenue, streamline your operations, and just deliver an amazing guest experience, because that's ultimately what it's all about. So we offer two powerful and fully integrated tools. We have the property management platform, and then we have our digital guidebook. So you can use them separately or together for even more of an impact. Just recently, which we're really excited about, we launched something new. It's called Hostfully Devices. So it's our latest product built to take automation to the next level. But I'll share more about that in a little bit. But first, the property management platform. It's award-winning. It's an all-in-one solution, really built to simplify and streamline your vacation rental operations. So we have direct connections to all the major OTAs, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, Google Vacation Rentals. We recently became preferred with Marriott International Homes and Villas. So you can manage everything in this one place, including your direct booking site. Some key features to include, of course, AI-powered guest messaging. We finally have multi-unit and portfolio management, seamless channel sync across all the OTAs as mentioned, and a unified calendar that has built-in smart automation, plus a whole lot more to make your life easier. Hostfully has been consistently recognized across the industry for just delivering powerful, intuitive tools that help property managers grow, but also scale with confidence, particularly. That's the property management platform. We also have our digital guidebooks, super easy, beautifully designed tool to really level up the guest experience. And with just a few clicks, you can share things like check-in instructions, directions, house rules, Wi-Fi code, lock codes, your favorite local spots like restaurants or attractions. It's also a great way to boost your revenue. So with our guidebooks, one of the highlights is our Viator integration. And you can offer curated local experiences and at the same time, earn referral commissions from those experiences. You can even upsell things like early check-in, mid-stay cleans, golf cart rental, gear rentals right from the guidebook. And it really helps ultimately give guests this polished, personalized, professional experience while you cut down on those repetitive questions and racking up those 5-star reviews. If you haven't tried out the guidebooks, and for all the Hostfully users that joined today, thank you for your loyalty, but let's check out the guidebooks as well. We've got you covered. Every account comes with one free guidebook, but there's also a free trial on all of our plans. So feel free to shoot me an email, frank@hostfully.com, if you want more information on that. Hostfully Devices, our newest edition. It's really a smart, seamless way to automate your vacation rentals and just create this unforgettable guest experience, because we support over 200 smart devices, from locks, thermostats, garage doors, or even hot tubs. You can manage everything remotely right from your Hostfully dashboard, and it's really easy to set up. It really sets us apart with this integration, and it integrates with your reservations calendar, so guests can access and device settings. You can update those automatically, so there's no manual work required. And we've also partnered with trusted brands like Slage, Yale, Honeywell, Ecobee, all of those to ensure a smooth setup, but also rock solid reliability. And it's less work for you, and just ensures a smoother, more elevated experience for your guests. Lastly, and then I'll stop talking. But not only do we offer this powerful platform, these stunning digital guidebooks, and now Hostfully devices, but we here at Hostfully really pride ourselves on our onboarding, our customer support, and we provide a wealth of resources to help you grow, from industry reports to educational webinars, blog posts, case studies, expert articles. There's a ton of value waiting for you on the website. I definitely encourage you to explore when you have a moment. Even if you're not using Hostfully, go on our website, check it out. And if you're curious to learn more about any of our products, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Drop a note in the questions tab asking for a one-on-one demo. But again, frank@hostfully.com. I'm always happy to set something up for you if you'd like to learn more. But let's get to why we're really here. It's how to outperform the market, right? So we have, as I mentioned, Eric and Jasper. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. I personally am thrilled to finally have you both on a webinar. We always talked about it, and now we're doing it. So feel free to take it from here, boys.
Awesome. Yeah. Frank, thank you for this. Yeah, this has been a long time in the making, so we're pumped to be here. And yeah, today we're very excited about this topic. This is something that Jasper and I are working on pretty closely across many listings around the world. Pricing power, how to use pacing to grow your revenue and outperform the market. But just to introduce myself and Jasper as well. We both have been in the short-term rental space for many years. Jasper is one of the first starters in the space with Get Paid for Your Pad podcast and the book. I personally have been on the property management side, the arbitrage side, and then most recently, Jasper and I launched our own boutique hotel brand called Freewyld. We are Hostfully users, so if you guys are not using Hostfully, I can't recommend them enough. Absolutely awesome. We run our business off of the Hostfully platform. But yeah, so we've been in the space for quite some time. And right now we are scaling our hotel brand, but through that, we also launched a service side of our company called Freewyld Foundry, where we've kind of taken Jasper's brainchild here of revenue management and have supported about 38 companies around the world. We're managing about 1,500 listings and about $65 million in booking revenue across those companies. And we're in many different markets and everything from urban properties to luxury properties and anything in between. And our goal, there's many different aspects of revenue management, and we wanted everyone who's on today's webinar to learn one thing that can truly impact your revenue. This is something that we implement not just in our own properties, but again, across the portfolio of 1,500 listings. And we're seeing some absolutely incredible results through this. And we feel that this can be a superpower, regardless of how many listings you guys have. Anywhere between one listing and above, doesn't matter. If you learn what we call pacing and understand how to implement this into your business, you'll be able to start seeing some revenue increases and start outperforming the market. So I'm super pumped about this. I'm going to pass the mic to Jasper. Jasper, feel free to add any more detail here about your introduction, and then let's kick it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate Frank the invitation and those Hostfully devices. That looks pretty cool. We should look into that.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, we're really excited. We'll set up a demo.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we prepared a little slides here, guys, and I'm gonna do my best to really drive as much value here. I asked myself a question of like, what's the one thing that we can explain to everybody here that's actually going to have a real impact on your revenue, and it has to be pacing. So that what we're going to talk about today. Now, we as Freewyld Foundry, we get a lot of inquiries from companies all around the world where we do a free revenue report, and so we've had a peek behind the scenes in hundreds and hundreds of short-term rental companies, and what we learned is that 95% of operators, we can tell that they're leaving money on the table. Every now and then we get an operator that applies and we look at their pricing and we're like, you know what, keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a great job. But most of the time we see an opportunity to increase their revenue. And so you would ask yourself, like, you know, these are all like professional companies, right? You would expect, you know, these are operators that know what they're doing. And so how is it possible that so many operators are still, you know, leaving money on the table? Now, in my opinion, it's because they lack one critical skill, and that is they don't really know how to monitor and how to make price decisions based on how their units are pacing compared to the market. So I know that if you hear this for the first time, this might be really difficult to understand. And so I'm going to do my best to really explain and use some concrete examples from one of our clients actually to illustrate this concept. Okay, I'm doing my best to explain it in the most simple way, right? But first, I want to kind of explain how most operators determine their pricing. right? If you've heard about the term comp set before, it stands for competitive set, and it's essentially a number of similar units in your neighborhood or in your area that you compare yourself to, right? And typically, when somebody joins, and this is how I did it when I in 2012 started my first apartment on Airbnb back in Amsterdam. My first thought was, okay, I'm going to go on Airbnb. I'm going to look at similar apartments. I'm going to see what they are priced at. And then I am going to price my unit at that same price because that just makes sense, right? And so that's what we call the comp set approach. And it makes a lot of sense to do it this way. But unfortunately, it does not maximize your revenue. So to give an example here, we're looking at two cabins. They're very similar. They're in the woods, 3 bedrooms, cabin A versus cabin B. And so cabin A might be priced at $500, cabin B might be priced at $300, and these cabins might be even seeing the same amount of bookings. And that's because it's not just about the space that you're renting out on Airbnb or in short-term rental platforms in general. It's about the experience. You're selling an experience, and that experience in cabin A could be completely different from the experience that you're selling in cabin A. So as a result, you can't just look at your property and compare your price to other similar properties and then just set your price at that price and then not touch it. Because that's what we see a lot of operators do. They get the pricing tool, they get the Price Labs, Wheelhouse, or Beyond Pricing. They look at other properties in their area and then they set their base price, they turn it on, and they let it run. We literally have companies that apply for our service where I look at the base price history because you can see that, and literally it hasn't changed in 2 years, right? And so, then you're with that data point, you already know that there's money on the table, right? So the reality is that you can have a feeling about what your unit should be going for based on all these ideas that you have and other units in your market, but in the end of the day, the guest decides. The guest actually decides what your price should be, right? The booker decides. Because if you're not getting bookings, then you might be right about your pricing. Who knows? But in the end of the day, you're not getting booked at the rates that you desire, and so we have to take our feelings and our thoughts and opinions out of the equation, and we have to completely focus on the numbers because the numbers don't lie. Okay, so pacing really should be dictating your pricing because pacing is giving you the strongest signal of whether your pricing is correct, whether it's too low or too high. Okay, I'm going to explain in a lot of detail like why this is the case. But before I do that, I just want to point out we are giving away a free gift at the end of this workshop. Very powerful gift that we have for everybody who's on this webinar today. So definitely stay until the end so that you can take advantage of our gift. Now, what pacing really means is pacing essentially describes how your units are getting booked compared to similar units in the market across the entire booking window, right? So this really starts with understanding what is a booking window. And a booking window is essentially like, when do guests book, right? So if you have a unit right now where we're in August, your market, you might see some people that are already booking for Thanksgiving, right? Now Thanksgiving is like, what is it, like 4 months out or something, 3 or 4 months out. So if people are already starting to book for Thanksgiving, that means that the booking window is already open. So the booking window is, let's say if today people start booking, it's about 3 months, or September, October, November, yeah, just over 3 months, right? 90 days. That's the booking window. People start booking now. And then the booking window is really, you can categorize it into 3 categories, right? On the one hand, you have the early bookers. These are the people that book really early on. Then you have like the meat of where your bookings are coming from. They're called the middle bookers, or we kind of coined that term, but just to make it easy to understand. And then we have the last minute crowd, right? And they look like party people. They're not always party people, but sometimes they are. All right, so the early bookers are really the people that are not so price sensitive, right? They want to lock in their stay a long time in advance. Typically, they're larger groups, family trips, group travel, special occasions, right? If you want to go to take your your partner to like a special location for New Year's, like you're not going to book that a week in advance, right? Because you want to lock something in and a couple months in advance. So the early bookers are the people that have a stronger intention behind the experience that they're looking for, and so they are willing to pay premium rates. And so it's very important that you don't miss out on these early bookers, right? Next group is the middle bookers. These are people that have a balanced mindset when it comes to price, right? They're not really looking for the cheapest last minute deal, but they're also not willing to pay like these premium rates like the early bookers do. And the most bookings actually happen in this section, right? And then you have the last minute bookers. You know, we all want to pick up some last minute bookings for sure, but these are people that have a lot of choice, because what does every short-term rental operator do? A week in advance or 2 weeks in advance, you look at your calendar and it's not completely filled, you're panicking and you're dropping your rates, right? Everyone does that. And so if you are not getting the majority of your bookings early in that booking window, you are going to have to rely on all these last minute bookers. And these are people that are looking for those discounts. People know that short-term rental hosts are dropping their rates last minute, right? So if you book something last minute, you're expecting to get a good deal, right? And so you're not able to charge premium rates to last minute bookers. There are some exceptions, right? But they're pretty rare, right? Taylor Swift throws a concert in like, you know, a small village where there's only 100 Airbnbs. Yes, you can wait till the very last minute and you can still charge, you know, a couple grand for your unit. But those are exceptions, right? So last minute trap. Want to just state that again, like we definitely do not want to rely on the last minute trap. And I'm going to actually go show you a real example from one of our clients where I'm going to walk you through what happens if you're relying too much on last minute bookings. So that will make it more clear. But the point of the what I've been talking about so far is really, you got to understand your entire booking window. So you got to know when does your booking window start, and you got to monitor like how many people are booking in the market and how much occupancy do I get, right? And if there's a discrepancy between those two, then that's a signal that that your pricing is off. And so you're probably thinking now, okay, that sounds great, but how do I know? How do I know how I am pacing versus the market? Now, the best metric for that is what we call the market penetration index. Now, if you're a Price Labs user, then you may have seen this KPI pop up in some of your Price Labs screens. If you're a Beyond Pricing or Wheelhouse user, then I don't think they are using this KPI, but you can still calculate it because it's very easy to calculate. You simply divide your occupancy could be your entire portfolio, could be one unit, and it could be for like, you know, the next 2 weeks, or it could be for the next 2 months, or it could be for Christmas, right? You can choose how you want to measure it, but you simply divide your occupancy by the market occupancy. Now, every single pricing tool will give you market occupancy data, right? So anybody can calculate this. So if you're a Price Labs user, an easy way to see this MPI number is to be in your multi-calendar. And there's a button there that says Add Metrics. If you don't have it yet, I highly recommend going after this webinar, right? Go in your Price Labs, click on the Add Metrics button, and I recommend look at your MPI. And you can select different MPIs, right? You can do like the next 7 days, the 14 days, or 30 days, 60 days. I recommend take a period that at least captures the booking window in your market, right? So for example, for this portfolio, we set it at 6 months. So we are looking ahead 6 months to see how our occupancy relates to the market, right? And so for example, the top listing there, you see that 1.4. That means that our unit, that top unit, has 40% more occupancy in the next 6 months than comparable units, okay? So that's a very important indicator to look at, the MPI. Now you can also, if you're a price up user, you can go to the report section as well, and there you can select any time frame. So for example, here I selected October, the month of October here for one of our clients, and there you can see the MPI as well on the unit level. So you can see some of the units here are between 80 and 90%. Some of them are a little higher, and there's one unit, the top unit there, that has almost twice the occupancy of, compared to the market, right? And sometimes if you get a really long booking, these numbers can kind of be quite volatile, right? Imagine you get like a booking for the next 2 months. Now you're 100% occupied for the next 2 months. If the market's only like 30% occupied, your MPI is going to be 300, right? So we don't always have to get it exactly perfectly in line where we want it to be, and we'll talk in a second. We'll talk about where you want it to be. Obviously, on a unit level, on a portfolio level, yes, you want to be pretty close to what your target is, but on the unit level, obviously, there's going to be some volatility there, right? So just to summarize, the art of pacing is you basically want to get bookings when bookings are coming in your market. And you can use these KPIs that we talked about as a red flag, right? So for example, if you see that for the Christmas holidays, the market is already 20% booked, right? And you don't have any bookings yet. That means that people are going on Airbnb and people are going on booking.com and they are booking units like yours, but they are not choosing yours, right? And so why are they not choosing yours? Well, maybe because you've priced yourself so high that you're not really a competitive choice. You're not a reasonable choice. And so that might be an indication that your prices are too high. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, because who knows, maybe there's this a number of hosts that don't use dynamic pricing and they just have a flat rate, and so people are booking those units for Christmas a long time in advance, right? So there's a little bit of nuance there, and you need to really use your brain a little bit and dig a little deeper to understand it. But this is a red flag. Right now, the other way around, it's also possible, right? Let's say you're already 40% booked and the market's only 20% booked. That means that more people on average are choosing your unit versus competition. So there might be an opportunity for you to raise the prices a little bit. So I hope this makes sense, guys. Feel free to drop questions. Frank is monitoring the questions. So Frank, if you're getting any questions, feel free to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm actually interested, for those that attended today, like, who owns your revenue and your pricing strategy? So we have a poll here, and whether it's you personally, if you have a revenue manager, if you use an outsourced service, or even your property management software pricing tool only, where there's no human oversight. So that'll give us an understanding for that. I mean, 75%, well, 80% now are saying that they personally own their revenue and pricing strategy. So y'all are going to get a lot from this webinar.
Yeah, and that's very common, right? Because most operators do their own revenue management. And that's one of the challenges that we see, is because your colleague Frank is not here because plumbing issue, right? There's always something going on. And so when do you have time to look at these boring graphs and these numbers, right? It typically will come as the last priority, and if there's time. And so I'm going to go a little bit fast through the next couple slides, because I want to show you guys the case study, because I think we can learn the most from that. But I just want to mention, a question that will always come up is, well, if I look at my MPI, if I look at my occupancy compared to the market, well, where do I want to be? Do I want to pace with the market? Do I want to pace ahead of the market? Or do I maybe want to pace behind the market? And so I did want to give a quick tip on that. Like, it really depends on your season, right? So we're looking at seasonality here in Miami, for example, where January through March is the high season. Then April is kind of an in-between month. And then May through September, it's like super hot and humid in Miami. And so nobody wants to go there. And so that's the low season, right? So when you look at your MPI, think about if you look at the next, let's say, 6 months in our example, right? Think about what season is the next 6 months. if we're in April in Miami, right? Or let's say late March, we're in Miami, we know that the next 6 months it's going to be a challenge to get bookings, right? And so we want to be getting more bookings than the market. So we want our MPI to be high. We want it to be not just 100, because then we're pacing along with the market. We're going to end up at like 50% occupancy or so, but we like to have higher occupancy, right? For a lot of reasons, like to keep momentum on the OTA is an important reason. And so you got to look at like your season, look at like what occupancy you expect in the market based on last year, based on a couple of years ago. So if we're, for example, now let's say we're in September or October, now we know that we're going to go into the strong season, right? So we don't need to be so much ahead of the market. We could be pacing with the market and get a very good result. So hopefully that makes sense. But
yeah, there was oh, sorry, Jasper. This might come a little bit later because I know you're going to share your screen with your dynamic pricing tool. But we have Naomi on the call or on the webinar, and she uses Wheelhouse and she does human oversight. But she said the lack of comparison insight to ensure the pricing structure is on par with the market. So beyond doing the comps, where would she be able to access the penetration numbers?
Yeah, for sure. So Wheelhouse doesn't actually give you the number like PriceLabs does, but what it will do is it will show you forward occupancy in the market. So when you go in Wheelhouse, you go to the top menu, there's a button called Markets. If you select that, you can actually see what occupancy, how the market's occupied for your units in a certain time frame. You can select the time frame. So you could select the next 4 months, and you could see like October, the market's 30% occupied. November, it's 20%. December, 10%. So then you can look at your own occupancy and you can divide that over the market occupancy to calculate your MPI. So it's a little bit more work, but you still you can, when you look at this every day, and that's what we always recommend, look at your pricing every day, right? Because over time, you're going to get very familiar. You know where to look, and you start getting a really good sense for these numbers.
Awesome. Hey, Jasper, I got one more question I think is pretty powerful. It is from Heather here. Isn't the point of using PriceLabs in the first place is that it's able to see that you are overpriced compared to the competition and not booking ahead or booking too soon because you're underpriced or should be adjusting accordingly. Can you touch on that, like the importance of PriceLabs and then the human aspect of studying the data?
Exactly. So this is a misconception that exists, right? And in an ideal world, yeah, it'd be great if PriceLabs could do that. And there is a setting in PriceLabs where you can automatically change your prices based on occupancy, but it's very hard to automate. You can't automate it, right? So like as an example, right? Let's say we have a unit that would typically get booked at $100 or so, right? If I set the base price at $300, PriceLabs is not going to bring it down to where it needs to be, right? PriceLabs is just going to take that $300, apply your settings like your last minute discount and the seasonality and the demand variations. It's going to apply that to that $300, but it's probably even in the low season, it's going to end up around 200, maybe 220 or so. And if people are not really paying more than $100, you're going to be completely empty, right? So PriceLabs is not, it's not going to automate it for you, right? It's the analogy that we always use is it's a race car, right? It can go very fast, but it doesn't drive by itself, right? You still have to press that pedal, you still have to steer, and that's the same with PriceLabs.
Yeah, it's not a Tesla.
Not yet.
Not yet. One last question. You might be touching on this, but if you can clarify this from Cliff, the MPI seems to focus on occupancy. How do I know where my pricing needs to be?
Right. So the MPI is really an indication of where your pricing is compared to where it should be, right? So if your MPI is very low, that means that you're probably overpriced. Now, obviously, pricing is not the only thing, right? If you have an Airbnb listing and you're only on Airbnb and you have a 4.2 rating, then that's the problem, right? So it's an indication. So think of it as a signal, right? You still have to look at it and then think about it and look at other things as well to understand what's really going on. But if your Airbnb listing looks great and you have great ratings and you're still like way behind the market, then most likely you're pricing yourself out of the market, because otherwise why wouldn't people book your unit compared to others, right? And we're going to show this very clearly in an example that's coming up, okay? So just to show what's possible, and pacing is just so powerful. We're seeing like really, really strong results when we get clients where their pacing is very off and we change it. You get things like you start breaking milestones, and there's always a lot of fun to celebrate milestones with clients, right? It's like going over $1 million in 1 month, getting a $30,000 booking, or having 40% higher revenue in the summer. Those are really, really exciting results, and it's definitely possible, right? Obviously every portfolio is different, but it's definitely possible. Now, low season, as I mentioned, like you really want to get ahead of the market, right? You want your MPI to be high. You want your MPI to be like 150, maybe 200, depending on what kind of final occupancy you're expecting in the market, right? When the market is in the low season, like you don't want to wait until you start discounting. Like what you want to do is you want to be competitive when everybody else is still priced really high, because you know how everyone's pricing high far out and then they drop last minute. You want to flip that script and say like, hey, you don't have to drop it all the way to your minimum 4 months out, but look at where your competition is priced and look at and price a little lower and see if you pick up bookings, right? And try to get ahead of the game there. All right, so I'm gonna go a little bit fast because I want to really talk a lot about this case study here, because this is just such a perfect example of what kind of effect pacing can have on your portfolio. Okay, so this is a client, Sweet Dicks, out of Canada. When we started with them in April, their summer was looking very, very dim. They had very little occupancy on the books, and summer is their high season, and so they were in a very difficult situation. And so what we did is we immediately adjusted our prices based on the MPI KPI that we just talked about. We made some pretty drastic changes, and we ended up saving the summer and actually outperforming by 30%, which I will show here actually live on the price labs. So I'm going to share my screen now, Frank, if you would allow. So there we go. Everybody, let me know if you can see. Can you see the price lab screen?
Yep.
I can. Okay, perfect. Because I can. And the only thing I see now is the price lab. So this is a real KPI. The portfolio analytics and price labs. If you have price labs, you've probably seen the screen quite a lot. But essentially, what you're looking at here are the KPIs that we achieved for this portfolio. For June through August. And as you can see here, I've only selected the listings where we have that are comparable to last year. So the listings that were active last year. Okay, so the very first thing that you see is we got pretty much the same amount of bookings, right? 328. Actually, we got 5 fewer bookings than last year. Our length of stay was exactly the same. Our occupancy was almost the same. But where is the big difference? There's 2 big differences that you can see here, right? And that's the ADR, right? We got the same occupancy, same length of stay, same number of bookings, everything the same, but we were able to get $55 on average more, which is about 30%. And the reason that we were able to get that is the listings are the same, the operations are the same, everything is the same except for one thing. We changed the booking window, right? We more than doubled their booking window. So on average, we were getting the bookings more than double the amount of days in advance compared to last year. And when I show you the graphs, and if you're a user of price labs, you're pretty familiar with these, this becomes very, very obvious, right? You look at the occupancy here. We started with them in April. You can see here, occupancy-wise, we did a little bit better, but not pretty much the same as last year. But you can see here in the ADR graph, this is where you can see the huge difference, right? January, about the same. February, a little bit, a couple dollars higher. March, a couple dollars higher. April, same. May, we were able to increase it a little bit. Typically, it takes us about a month or two to really get this pacing thing in where we want it to be. But then June, you're seeing here the big difference, right? Like almost $50 higher. July, more than $50 higher. August, we're still halfway the month, but we're booking, what is it, like, almost $70 higher, right? And we're still achieving the same occupancy, but we're booking at a higher ADR. And when we go down to the trends by booking creation date, so these numbers here, they're showing how much value do we book in the month. So in the month of April, when we started, you can see we booked $90,000 worth of bookings versus $50,000 last year. So that's a big increase, right? And that makes sense because essentially, like they were a classic example of like relying too much on the last minute bookings and not taking advantage of the early bookers and the middle bookers. And so we immediately made our prices in April. We made our prices for June, July, and August more competitive. So more people started booking already for the summer. And so we were capturing those people that were willing to pay a higher ADR, right? So we're really catching up on bookings in April, May. And you can see here, April, May, where we got the highest booked value, right? So this is when people were booking for the summer versus last year. You can see they got all their bookings in June, right? And in July and August. So these are all like more last minute bookings. So these numbers like clearly show you the power of pacing and the power of shifting from a strategy that relies too much on last minute. And it's not that and I'll stop sharing here, Frank, so we can go back to the slides. But it's not that this operator had a strategy of like, hey, let's only book last minute, right? That's not the case. They just weren't aware of how long what their booking window was. So they were thinking that probably everybody else gets booked in their market 2 weeks in advance, 3 weeks in advance. You don't know what you don't know, right? And if you don't look at the data, like you just won't understand it.
Yeah, Jasper, let me jump in there just to piggyback of what you just said. So most of you who are watching this right now, and you answered the poll that you don't really have a strategy, no one's really owning it, or you have a pricing tool with no human oversight to it. What we see often with Freewyld Foundry when we run these audit reports is that most people and operators, their psychology is that you're focused on occupancy and you're just focused on bookings. You're not necessarily, there's no strategy to understand when to do that booking. So what Jasper just walked through, right? So it's really a mindset shift of going from just getting any type of bookings that come in and shifting to knowing that there is a strategy to understand. Essentially, Jasper, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's the psychology of when the guest is actually booking, right? You want to kind of capture that at the highest level because then you can increase your ADR, correct?
Yeah, it's you want to get bookings from people that are not price sensitive, and the people that are not price sensitive, those book further in advance. And so if you miss out on those bookings, now you have to book last minute, and the last minute bookers, they're looking for, they can get a discount. Everybody else is dropping their prices. So how can you get a premium rate or a good rate if there's so much choice or for a lower price, right?
And it minimizes the risk, right? It okay, I'm not muted. It minimizes the risk as well, right? So the people that are booking in advance and are willing to spend a higher dollar on that property are typically not bringing the challenges to the property. We see that in our own properties, right? So like the biggest risk for the last minute bookers is parties and issues and things like that. We all know that as an industry. So the further that we can understand pacing and get people that are willing to spend a bit higher on your properties, you lower the risk of the management side, which is amazing. You're making more money and you're working with better guests, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about 50 minutes left. I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions. So I want to quickly just touch on, what are the numbers that you should really have an understanding of. So if MPI we touched on already. I do also recommend that you have a good understanding of what is the median booking window in your markets, right? We just looked at the booking window that we achieved for the summer for a client. That was like mid-30s, right? Now, if you look at this, is actually the median booking window in their market, right? So you can see here that mid-30s that we achieved is pretty much in line with like where the market's at, right? And since this is their high season, like we don't necessarily need to be ahead of these numbers, right? But in the low season, like you see where the booking window is really low, we'd love to be a little higher than that, right? So highly recommend whatever tool you're using, like have a rough understanding of like what your median booking window is in your market. And if you're way off on this number, if your booking window is like 80 in the summer, I can guarantee you that your prices are too low, right? If your booking window is 10 in the summer, you're relying too much on last minute, right? And you're pricing yourself out of the market for the early bookers. Okay, so have at least a rough understanding of that. Here's another screenshot of something that shows pickup. That's something that's also important to keep an eye on, because when MPI is kind of like, where are you in terms of occupancy, booking pickup kind of shows you what direction you're going in, right? So for example, here you can see like the pickup, the 7-day pickup, the 15-day pickup, right? You see here these two units are both at 0.8. But the unit at the bottom we got 3 bookings in the last week, right? So we're going in the right direction, right? We're picking up bookings. This one here at the top has 0.8 as well, so we're a little behind the market. But we only got 1 booking in the last 15 days. That's not a lot. With 1 booking, unless it's like a really long booking, but you're gonna fill up your calendar, right? So the top unit here, I'd be much more eager to lower the pricing to get more bookings going than the one at the bottom. So it's not just about MPI. There's other factors, and there's a few more factors, but 1 hour is not enough to cover everything, right? Okay, I'm gonna scroll through these slides a little bit because just because we're running out of time. But one thing that I just want to emphasize is really like what I want you to take away from this presentation, right? Is by mastering your what we call pacing-based revenue management, you will consistently outperform your market and capture full revenue potential for your property, because there are very, very few operators. As I mentioned in the beginning, from the operators that apply for our service, I would say maybe 1 in 20 has this really dialed in. 95% of people do not have this dialed in. So if you have this dialed in, you are almost guaranteed to outperform your market. Of course, if your operations, your hospitality, if everything else is also in place, right? In the end of the day, we're in the hospitality business. Revenue management is only one part, right? Every aspect of our business drives to revenue.